good afternoon, good morning. This is Dr. Eunice. I am going to be talking to you about borderline personality disorder, just like the way I have been doing. This is a quick study, and my source is DSM-5. So this is for those people who are trying to do a quick study. This is not a diagnosis. It's not a procedure for diagnosing anyone. Just for you to remember the symptoms for your study. So borderline personality disorder is definitely a mental health condition that is characterized by pervasive instability in moods, in personal relationships, self-image, as well as behavior. So people that have or are living with borderline personality disorder will experience intense emotions. They do have difficulty regulating them, and it leads to impulsive and sometimes self-destructive behaviors. So we're going to look at some of the symptoms that are going to manifest in such a patient, so that you can know for your exam. And even for those people that practice, it would be helpful to have a provisional, diagnosis for your client right before you do the whole assessment. So let's start with the symptoms. The first one is emotional dysregulation. So an individual with BPD or borderline personality disorder will experience the intense, unstable emotions that can shift very, very rapidly. So imagine feeling overwhelmed with happiness one moment, and then all of a sudden you become very sad or angry over just a very minor incident. So someone maybe says something, you were in the middle of happiness, you're laughing, and then somebody says something, and maybe they didn't even mean it, or they meant it. It's very minimal. That makes you very extremely angry and sad. So the other symptom would be fear of abandonment. People that are suffering from BPD will have an intense fear of abandonment and may go to extreme lengths to avoid real or perceived rejection. So they don't want to be rejected. So they might do things like that will definitely show or demonstrate these signs. So someone might feel abandoned or betrayed if a friend cancels plans, which makes this person experience frantic efforts to avoid being alone or intense efforts to keep the relationship intact. So they might, someone says, I'm not coming for dinner anymore, we're not going on a date again, and this person is going to be calling non-stop, like 50 times, calling and trying to beg that person to show up. Okay, like maybe dialing the phone. Someone might not be satisfied with just an answer like no. The other one is identity disturbance. When you're talking about the identity disturbance, you're talking about somebody who has an unstable self-image or self-identity that could also lead to identity confusion about who they are. So that is somebody that feels a completely different person depending on who they are with or the situation they are in. They struggle to define themselves consistently. Okay, so irrational anger, hostility is going to you're talking about the individual often involves difficulty controlling anger, leads to frequent outbursts or intense anger that seems very, very disproportionate to the situation that is happening. So, for example, you have someone that, you said you are not going to give them a pen, and they throw a fit and they start calling names and they very angry, and of course the outbursts are the ones that you would be worried about because they're intense and they do not mirror what just happened. So someone, like for example, someone might explode in rage over minor inconvenience or just passive criticism when none was intended to happen. So that might lead to conflict in relationships. Like you have a friend that misunderstands you. You said something in a text message, but they didn't let you explain, and so they exploded with anger, and that terminated your relationship. So that is what is being referred to as irrational anger, because there's really no rationality there. So impulsive behavior, such as substance abuse, binge eating, overspending, reckless driving, all those are actually associated with the impulsive behavior symptom. So imagine someone that is engaging in very risky, even something like sexual behavior with anyone, stranger. They feel like they have maybe lost a boyfriend and they want to sleep with any other person that comes to them and tell them they love them. So that is definitely considered unsafe, or it's risky because they could get diseases, they could get impregnated, and then they don't know how to deal with the consequences after that. So someone else is spending money on impulse, often leading to the detriment of their financial stability. So the self-harm and suicidal behavior, people with BPD may engage in self-harming behaviors. Some of the common ones that we see in the field are including someone cutting themselves or burning themselves as in a way to cope with intense emotional pain. So when they feel pain, instead of using any other coping mechanism, like talking about it, or just trying to do mediation or mindfulness, so they might end up cutting themselves. And we have a lot of issues when someone is could be suicidal. So because a lot of self-harm, they might cut something that could lead to unstoppable bleeding, and that person might die. So cutting someone as a way to release, cutting yourself as a way to release emotional tension, or punish yourself for maybe something that you felt like you failed. Like maybe you failed in an exam, you failed to convince a friend, you failed to interview well for an exam, you failed to get an internship or a scholarship, and then you decide that you're going to, because of the emotional pain that you're feeling or the tension, you decide that you're going to cut yourself or harm yourself. That is definitely would fall under the borderline personality disorder. So unstable relationships, people that have or are dealing with BPD will have relationships that are very, very unstable. They are characterized by idealization and devaluation. So someone is the most amazing, someone is feeling like they are the most amazing person in the world one moment, and then the next thing they are hating them intensely the next day. So that could lead to infrequent breakups, even for romantic relationships or even in marriage. And sometimes very difficult to reconcile such, because the instability is caused by a mental disorder. So the impact of these symptoms on somebody's life is what really matters to be considered a diagnosis. So BPD symptoms can significantly disrupt somebody's daily functioning and relationships, as we have seen from the symptoms, leading to frequent crises, risks in life, and challenges that really are hard to maintain as a human being or as an individual. People will want to actually isolate you or not have a relationship with you, because who is going to handle these unstable relationships and unexplainable outbursts, and you have lack of emotional dysregulation is really going to impact how you relate with other people. So for treatment, we usually say that for borderline personality disorder, will need a lot of psychotherapy, particularly the dialectical behavior therapy, which is DPT. Focuses on developing coping skills, learning how to, regulate your emotions, and obviously the interpersonal effectiveness. So I want you to understand the symptoms. I want you to know that these symptoms are not, again, not a procedure to diagnose anyone. So you could use this to just memorize what you need to memorize for your exam. I want to wish you all the best if you're doing an exam, MFT, whatever exam you're doing, whether it is for my class students, whatever it is. I hope that this helped you to understand instead of going to read the entire book to understand the symptoms, and I wish you all the luck.